If you're like the average person, you have a lot of acquaintances. You may even have a lot of friends. But when you start narrowing it down to who are your true friends, tried and true, that list starts to get pretty small. I mean, you might have a lot of good people around you, but that real list can get kind of small. In our text today, Paul mentions two guys who he would tell you were true friends. See, he was under arrest, but he was not alone because he had some guys coming to help him and take care of him. He mentions these two fellows, and as he does, if you really look through the passage, you see several qualities of that true friend. You know, not everybody's going to be your true friend, but you can recognize them if you kind of look at these qualities that Paul mentions in here. He's talking about Timothy and Epaphroditus. As he looked in here, he says, Timothy is uniquely devoted. In fact, Paul said there in verse 20, there's no one like him. He's my son in the ministry. I'm his father in the ministry. And he has been there. He is tried and true. David Nicely and I were talking yesterday, and he had heard a quote which I thought was really good and timely for us. And it was this: how do you know your true friends? True friends, when times get difficult, true friends are the ones who are walking in when everybody else is walking out. Also with Timothy, he says he's got a genuine concern. He says in verses 20 and 21, while others are seeking their own interest, Timothy is genuinely concerned about others. And Paul would say, I'm right there at the top. He cares about what I'm going through. Well, Paul was put under arrest. Many friends walked out. Many acquaintances left. Many people sought their own interests, but Timothy was right there. He also says in verse 21, he has proven his worth. Proven his worth. It means time tested. You know, that's one thing, like you make a lot of friends in high school. Which of those friends are you still close to? You make a lot of friends in college. Which ones are you still close to? True friendship will stand the test of time. It's proven. He also says in verse 22, we serve together in the gospel, meaning we're heading in the same direction. We're serving the same God. We are working together for the gospel. And then with Epaphroditus. Epaphroditus was the one that the church at Philippi sent to Paul to minister to Paul on their behalf. He was their messenger. And Paul was getting ready to send Epaphroditus back. Epaphroditus had evidently gotten sick in trying to serve Paul. And news had traveled to the church at Philippi, and they were worried about him. This was their boy, their messenger. And he's getting ready to send him back. In fact, Epaphroditus is probably the one who brought this letter back to the church at Philippi. Paul used some great words when he talks about Epaphroditus. He says he's my brother, my fellow worker, my fellow soldier for the cross. Meaning we are in this together. He's somebody I can rely on. You kind of get that picture of a soldier in a dangerous area fighting together with his other brothers. Band of brothers. Fellow brother, worker, soldier. Also, he told them he represents you well. He is your messenger. Even though you, church at Philippi, cannot be with me where I am in chains, he has well represented you. A true friend represents you well. Doesn't talk bad about you. Doesn't spread rumors. They represent well. He says in verse 25, he ministered to my needs. He was a minister to my need. Whatever it was. And you know, that true friend. Now, you got a lot of friends who are willing to help you. But the true friend is that one who often will provide help before they're asked for it. We, well-meaning with many people, will say, hey, let me know if you need anything, right? And that's good. That's not a problem. But that really close friend is already providing for that need before you tell them what it is. Because you know each other well. and they care. He also says that when he comes back, receive him with joy, honor him, because he has done well. He has represented you well. These type of friends inspire joy. You're glad to see them. You want to see them. You want to honor them. You want to build them up. And finally, he says, they risk it all. He says, for he nearly died for the work of Christ, risking his life to complete what was lacking in your service to me. He's not being rude there, like, because y'all didn't help me out. They actually did by sending Epaphroditus. He says he provided everything that you as a church could do because he represented you well, and he risked his life. He gave his all. A true friend will risk it all for their friends. What a great model of true friendship as Paul talks about Timothy and Epaphroditus.
So we had this idea today, to do something different with this, to do something unique. And so, talking about friendship, we wanted to, Bill and I, invite some friends that we've had for a long time, going all the way back to college, 8 years ago. And so I want to introduce them to you, and we wanted them to just kind of come and testify about the atmosphere of friendship that you see in Philippians 2:19 through 30. Rather than us just preach it, I thought it'd be better to just introduce you to people who have kind of lived it with us. And so I want to introduce you to them. So y'all come on up here. These are all our Wingate peeps. Give a He's Alive welcome to some of our Wingate peeps. Y'all come on up. Don't hesitate. Don't be nervous. It's going to be fine. And one of them is now a good old Tiff. He's alive. He's alive. It's good to see you here today. Tiff, we ain't seen you for several weeks. But I'm just joking about that, by the way. Okay, so, y'all know Bill. And this is David and Julie Svensson. They're together. And y'all know Tiffany, who's with Bill. And this is Katie and Dana Graves. And my wife Lori's a part of that group, but she can't, well, I don't know if she made it in for the 9, but if you ask me later, I'll tell you why she's not here. But it's all good. But for everyone else, we're missing 2 people that were kind of part of the bond. They were not able to be with us. But so we just wanted them to testify. And I just want to say, there's this line in that passage that when I was thinking about this week that really struck me. When Paul says of Timothy, I have no one else like him who takes a genuine interest in your welfare. First of all, I want to say there are people in my life now, and even people in this church that are like that in my life, and I'm grateful for those people, especially many of you who've come alongside. But there was a time in my life where some of the people on this stage, they were the only ones I could say that about. I have no one else like him, no one else like her. Someone who takes a genuine interest in my welfare. Someone who really cares for me and is concerned for me. And someone who I can be myself around. And there were many times, even in our early ministry days, where a few of them were some of my go-to people. I had no one else to go to when I would say, like, hey, can you help us doing disciple nows? And can you talk to this lady? Or can you say this? Or can you do that? They were some of my go-to people. And in many ways, still are. In the early days, I had no one else like them. And I was grateful for that relationship. People who took genuine interest actually cared about me and the things that I was doing and cared about the gospel. And I want to say, even two of them that you see, David and Julie and Katie and Dana, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've tried to pray him into he's alive. And I'm still praying that, but it's just, but the truth is, as much as we'd love to have them here with us, geography really doesn't help that matter because they've come a distance to be here today. But I want to tell you that for both of them, when you talk about a genuine interest in the welfare of the church, we've talked and counseled with them many times about churches where they are at now. And they are in churches where they're part of trying to revitalize the church. You know, we're very blessed here at He's Alive because God is working and moving. But they are in places where way back when the church was great, but then the church began to die and get slow. And they're in places now where they are sacrificing their time and their all to do everything that they can to, God is using them to bring life and revitalize the churches where they are and bring the church back to fullness of growth. And I just want to say that to commend them because that just lends to what Paul is saying when he says, I have no one else like them, someone who will take a genuine interest in the concern of your welfare in the matters of Jesus Christ. So we just thought we'd let them testify one by one briefly about what that relationship meant to them over the years. So we're going to start with Julie. Go ahead, Jules. Tell them. Hold that mic up to your mouth and talk.
They're starting with me because I'm the oldest. And, well, I wanted to first of all share how I became part of this group because it was kind of in an unusual way. It wasn't because David was in my life. It was because one of their friends was formerly in my life. And it reminds me of how God takes us through a lot of things to put us where He wants us. And He knew that I needed to be part of this, so that was part of my weave on the back of my tapestry, that I would be blessed to be part of such a great group of friends. And I'm so grateful for it. So I was the friend that stayed single for the longest. Didn't get married till I was 35. So the first thing I want to talk about is just what an amazing support I had as a single. And for those of you who may be in the audience today who are still single and who are saying, like I said for all those years, oh my goodness, nobody's ever going to come along. Maybe I'm supposed to be single, asking all those questions. I had some incredible encouragement. Actually, when David came along, I think everybody was so relieved. Oh my goodness, finally. And the funny thing is, David came along, and I was so grateful for that. And when he asked me to marry him, my first call was to Katie. And Katie was so drugged up on cough medicine, she forgot about it. So when I talked to her the next day, she didn't even remember me calling. And it was like the biggest moment of my life. But so I want to encourage you, if you are single today, that even if your friends got married right out of college, you stay in touch with them. And boy, am I glad that this friendship came before email, before all that technology, because we actually sat down and talked to each other. And that really helped us with the basis of our friendship. And I believe today, the reason we go out to have coffee and actually talk face-to-face is because we grew up doing that. So I encourage you to do that as well. Secondly, the support of this group when I was newly married at 35, not knowing what in the world I was doing, teaching me how to love my husband well. I had learned from them because I had seen them love their husbands well. And then came the children. And boy, have I had some tears and conversations with these friends who were willing. This is the big thing. They were willing to tell me they're ugly, to give me the freedom to tell them mine. So if you think no one's having trouble with your kids at home, they're kidding you, and they're not telling you the truth. But I'm going to tell you, I just am so grateful for friends who allow me to be myself and allow me to tell the truth. And this is the big thing, is they tell me the truth back. And I remember a conversation that I've had many times where I say, what am I going to do with this child? Things are not going very well. And they say, I think first of all you need to look at yourself. Are you representing Jesus to them? And often I wasn't. And I remember reading a devotion one morning about how we need to go first, and how my friends have taught me that I need to go first. I need to love my children well first, like Jesus loved us in the dirty. So I just want to just praise God for friends who say, get on your knees and pray about it. I'm going to pray about it, and I know they're going to. But through all those phases of my life, it has been an amazing journey, and I look forward to journeys forever. Now, Mark used me years ago. I was the single person who he could say, come and do this weekend conference with me. I've got good plans for you. So we did lots of that together, which was a great experience. And I'm glad I was single for all those years and could do it.
I was the married into this group guy, which could not have been a more huge blessing, by the way. When I first came into this, at that point 18 years ago, now 16 years married, it was not too long before, of course, I ran into these fine group of individuals up here. And I noticed the incredible bond and friendship that they had pretty quickly. And it made me realize, and what was so cool about it, sorry, what was so cool about it was how real and how deep that bond was. And I think at that point in my life, I was at a point where a lot of my, as some folks out in the audience may be in that point in their life, that their relationships are pretty surface level. I mean, how many times with people at work and, the grocery store, hey, what's up, how you doing? Good to see you, how are you? And it's right here. And how nice it is to make yourself vulnerable enough to let yourself go beyond this, to this. I need you to point me in the side to get me out of this little emotional thing here. But anyway, just give me one of these. But how often we are here and we don't dig deep enough to go here and let ourselves be vulnerable enough to, or in the same case, open yourself up to other people and dig into other people's lives that you care about, to try to get beyond this. So I'm appreciative of this group for opening themselves up to me to get to that with them. And something that Mark said at the beginning, right as we were starting, was how often you feel like and Julie just hit on it too, how often are you at a place where you don't want to open up to somebody to say, things aren't so great with me right now, but I don't want to tell you, everything's great, it's great. But to be able to have that with a group of people, with an individual, my big appreciation currently is my relationship with Bill and the growth in that. So I am super appreciative of that. But having that ability to open up to people around you, invest in other people, and don't be afraid to do that, because you don't want to go too far or too deep into your life and go look back and go, ooh, I don't have those relationships. So open yourself up, invest in other people, and this group has taught me that.
One of the things that always comes to my mind when it comes to these friendships is the word rare. Because these people, as they touched on it as well, they know the good, the bad, and the ugly. We can be very authentic with one another. We can share things, marriage troubles, children, anything that we have in our lives that we struggle with. And if you know me well, one of my life mottos is keep it real. I'm all about keeping it real, being transparent. And I think today, in this day of social media, a lot of times we do tend to portray or want to keep things superficial. make things look good. And I'm not saying we need to spill everything out there all the time, but you need to have people in your life that you can call on for biblical counsel and accountability when things are tough and when you're deep in the trenches and you're in dark times, and for them to be able to, as I say, call you out on things if they need to in love. And also just, we have the type of relationship, we may not talk every day or even every week, but when we get back together, it's like we haven't missed a beat. We've always been together, and we can jump right back in to where we left off and catch up, and we can also share things that are funny, things that TMI that you might not want to know. Lots of TMI, too much information. But we can share all of those things. The funny, the deep, the dark, the spiritual, everything. And that is just, especially now, that is very rare. And it's a treasured thing, especially in our life, to have those friends who we've known for years and they've known us from way back, and they are still such an integral part of our lives. And only God can do that. Only God can ordain and orchestrate those kinds of relationships. And I'm just so thankful for that. And then, as Julie was talking about the tapestry, there's just so many ways that we've been woven together with all of these friends. And of course, part of it even led us here. And so God had that journey orchestrated long ago, and I'm just so thankful for it. And I just encourage anybody to pray for those friends that are in your life, that you can really have that deep relationship and biblical and godly relationship with. And don't be afraid to open up to them and to ask them to hold you accountable, and that you do the same as well. Because we can't do this alone. We can't travel this journey here. There's too much stuff out there in this world. And so we have to have people beside us to hold us up and to share that with. So I'm just thankful for the rare friendships that we have in this group.
Like Mark said earlier, the thing that sticks out about, in this passage that you guys read this morning was the genuine interest. That sounds like two simple words, like not big deal. Oh, yeah, I'm interested in them, or they're interested in our lives. But genuine interest is a gift. It's a gift these days. And the other thing that stood out to me was down in the passage where it said that he called Epaphroditus his brother, fellow worker, and fellow soldier. When I think about these friends, these friends are the ones that are willing to soldier, like warrior friends who are willing to get down in the ugly and the dirty and the hard and the dark and the deepest and hardest and darkest times of my life. And I may not even talk to them. Tiff and I were roommates in college, and we can let 6 months go by without even texting or talking, And obviously, as Julie shared, I dropped the ball on her biggest moment of her life, yet there was grace and forgiveness there. A lot of people would not have, they would have taken that super personally and not given me a second chance, but she had lots of grace with that. But these people up here are my warrior friends. In some of the darkest, ugliest times in my life, which have not been that long ago, I'm on their sofa. That's where I am. And I might be cussing and fuming and crying and yelling and beating my fist on the sofa, and they let me. There's no judgment. There's no, oh, Katie, settle down. There's none of that, except maybe when it's necessary. But, that's where I am. And I can remember several times when I haven't talked to Tiff in forever, and all it takes is a text. she can say, I don't have time to talk about it. Will you just get on your knees and pray? And I know her. And I know that if she said that and she reached out and she needs that, you better believe that I was in my closet on my knees praying. But see, that's the gift, right? That you know that your friend will take it seriously, you know, and not just, oh, will you pray for me? And, oh, yeah, I'm praying for you. You know, that they're willing to get down on their knees in their closet and pray for whatever it might be. And you don't have to know what it is. She would tell me what it was when she wanted to tell me what it was. I didn't need to know. And so that's just a gift. And I'll close with this, that I think all of this is because of where it started. I remember going to college and calling my mom and dad in high school. I mean, I really thought that, it wasn't a conscious thought, but I look back and I know in high school, I'm like, I can either hang out with these fun friends over here or I can hang out with the Christians. And I chose the fun people. And then I'll never forget, I went to college and I called my mom and I said, I met this awesome group of people. It's my freshman year. Awesome group of people. They are so much fun and they're Christians. Did you know such things existed? I didn't know. What? That's so cool. And so there started a relationship of going on trips together, staying up late, talking about all the things that I didn't even want to know. I found out. But that's what friends do. And that was the foundation of our friendship, was God. Because we were starting it wasn't the beginning of our walks, but I think in college you really start owning it for yourself. And so you spend time with your friends talking about that. And Dana and I are new empty nesters. Both of our kids are in college. And it wasn't too long ago, we don't get to do this very often, but it wasn't too long ago that we all were together with our kids. And I remember just circling around in a circle and looking at it. And going 25 years later, here we are with our kids in a circle, saying the blessing together, spending the weekend at the beach together. And I looked at my kids and I said, let me tell you something. When you go to college, you find some friends that you know you're going to circle up together 25 years later and still be a part of each other's life. That is a friend. That is a friend. But we can't do that in and of ourselves, right? We can't care that deeply. We can't do all that. It's God who does that in us and through us. And so I would just encourage all of us, and you guys too, to just pray for that. Just pray for friendships that are rooted in Him.
It's tough going last here with everything that I had planned to say. They've pretty much said it. But I, like David, married into this group. I wasn't part of I thought it was kind of a clique, to be honest with you. I did go to college with these folks, but let's just say that we ran in a bit of a different crowd. And so I was fortunate enough to marry this beautiful lady to my left and kind of be adopted into this group. And, it's funny, the thing that I would share is that in life, my life, looking back, I turned 50 this year, and looking back on my life, like my mom, I'm from this little small town in South Carolina, and my mom, besides my wife, of course, is like my biggest cheerleader, and she just thinks I'm the greatest, right? And, honestly, I came from very humble beginnings. And there's a lot of things in life, whether it was sports or business or whatever it might be, that from the outside looking upon my life, most people would say, man, you've done great. You've achieved a lot. And, that's great. But, early on, experiencing success and so forth, there was an emptiness. I came to Christ later. These folks grew up in church. I did not. And so I came to Christ later in my life. And like the passage where Bill alluded to it being like a father figure, these people have been that counsel to me. They've been great friends, but they've been the wisdom I needed when I was at a crossroads in life. they've been the counsel that my wife and I needed when, we were tempted to quit. And even though maybe some time would pass between moments together, opportunities to share together, they were my go-to when times were critical. And, that is the true friend that they're talking about. And so, boy, I pray for all of you that you have somebody like that, because as good as things can look from the outside, there's times we all know when we are hurting and lonely and struggling on the inside. And it's at those times where you need a true friend that you can express that vulnerability and that insecurity and that just total transparency to, that surface level friend is just not going to hear. So I'm thankful for these people that are sitting around me on this stage, and I look forward to the next 50 years with them.
Who, me? Oh, I got a mic. I'd say, when you encounter people from the past, and maybe those school reunions or whatever, and you go, hey, well, yeah, man, how you doing? All right, that's good. All right, what you doing now? Okay, all right. All right, here we go. Gets awkward within about 90 seconds to 2 minutes. This is a true friend, because it really doesn't matter how long there's been between communication. When you get back together, it's on. And it's I love we've kind of reinstituted. We did a beach trip. Man, it was crazy. What, 10 years ago or something? I don't know. 8 years, and 9 years ago. 9 years ago, and with our families, with our kids, it was crazy. All in the same house. If you can do that and get along, that's a good test of true friendship as well. But just life and kids and ages and all that, we haven't been able to do that. So we were able to do that this fall again. Just us, no kids. And it was incredible. I mean, you're enjoying late night talks and early morning talks around coffee, and it just being together. And so an encouragement to you is, because you may be out there, and as we've been sharing, certain people in your life have just come to the forefront, and you're like, yeah, God, I'm grateful. But there also may be somebody here who you're like, thanks, I wish I could have some of that. Well, you know what? God built us for relationships. So the truth is, you can have it. It's about submitting to the Lord, praying to Him, praying for God to bring those people into your life. But it's not all about what they're going to do for you. You got to make investment as well. And as you make investment in other people and relationships are built, you will see what will stand the test of time. God desires that for all of us. And so if you don't have that, that should be one of the things at the top of your prayer list, because it's important. We are not alone. We go through it together, and God blesses it.
And in closing, I just want to say, a lot of these people knew me when, I was chasing a dream. I thought I was going to end up in Nashville or on TV or whatever. And if you just said 20-some years ago, no, actually, you're going to be a pastor, and they're going to be on stage with you talking about, and they're going to be empty nesters, and you're going to be in the throes of raising 3 boys, I'd have said, man, how boring is that? That's just awful. But I wouldn't change any of it. They supported me when I was chasing a dream. They supported me when I was a dad, still do, when I'm a husband. And they still call me and show up to the things that we do as a pastor. And the thing about being in this role is that you don't, and this is kind of what Lori, my wife, was saying too, is you don't really get to be you in a lot of circles that you run in. You always try to be the expectation of what everybody thinks you ought to be. And typically you fall short of that. But the people on this stage are people who I feel like I can be me. My mouth sometimes runs way out in front of the rest of me, and it gets me in trouble. And but it's rare when you have a group of people you can hang around and you can say anything and not worry about offending them, be anything, be who you are, and everybody laughs it off. And the gift that they have given and have always given to me is discovery of myself, and just allow me the freedom to just to be Mark. And there is no stage or value that you can put with that right there. Someone who allows you to be you, and in being you, you discover who you are, and you're better because of your relationship with them. And what I want to say is, when I went to college, my pretty much the first year and a half of my college experience, nobody knew who I was, because I did not invest in anyone at college. I thought I was going to transfer and go on to bigger things. I thought Wingate University was below me. And so I didn't invest in anybody, and so I didn't show up to anything. And then I showed up at a Winter National. I kind of knew Katie from years back, but I showed up at a Winter National meeting because the school would give you this great opportunity to go to Europe, and I wasn't going to be fool enough to pass that up. And there's this dude in there named Bill who took an interest in me. And from that moment, opened a door for these relationships. And I say that to say, I never went seeking any of these relationships. I never went asking. I never went desiring. I mean, you always hope for that. The thing that that brought these relationships, that opened these relationships into my life, was simply this. I just took a risk and decided to show up. I decided to be part of something instead of resisting something. The first year and a half, man, I was, and this is probably hard for you to believe, but I was like a loner. I just kept to myself because I didn't think my future existed there. And so many times in church, we do that. We show up and then we leave. And the thing that brought these relationships into my life was a decision to get outside of myself. And I just want to say that to you guys today. And I'll dismiss them and the band can come up. We're talking about small groups today. And this is a great opportunity. If you're looking for friendships and relationships and you say, man, I need something like that in my life. There's a statistic even out there today that says most Americans are very lonely. Like, we have thousands of friends on social media, but we have no community. We have all these friends, but we still have no relationship. And what Julie said was so true. That was so unique about these friendships, is it's face to face. But I'm telling you, I did not seek these. God put them into my life because I finally made a decision to take a risk. Even as afraid as I was a little afraid junior in college. But I decided to just show up to one event and everything changed. I promise you, whether it's a dinner group, a life group, whatever, if you just decide with intent to show up, the beauty of church, God will do something. And you'll find, kind of like what the group was saying, there's people who share my ugly. There's people who share my interest. there's actually people who are going through the same things I'm going through. But you have to make a decision to show up.